Hello friends, today we will be continuing the discussion on parasympathetic nervous system. In the previous video, we have talked about the receptors, the way the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems are functioning. Now, yesterday we said that there are two types of broad classification of cholinergic receptors, that is nicotinic and muscarinic. And nicotinic, we said it is N, and M, isn't it? I hope I have taught that. So here it is, NN and just a second, yeah, NN, NM, okay, NN, NM, and okay. So NN, NM I have taught, isn't it? And then I have told you that muscarinic we have M1, M2, M3. M1 I said it is present in CNS, responsible for your cognition, memory, learning function, and gastric ganglia. M2 is present in the heart and also in the CNS. Have I told that? Have I told that, guys? Heart and CNS. M3 everywhere, almost. That is eye, GIT, bronchus, gland, CNS, bladder. M4, I told you it is present in CNS, but it has a different function. It is doing an inhibitory effect on the neurotransmitter release, which is under research and clinically not significant to remember. M5 CNS also, I told you it dilates the cerebral arterioles and is responsible for your rewarding behavior. That's what we have discussed yesterday. Then I told you that there is a by blood vessels, that acetylcholinesterase activity can't happen because that nerve supply is not present. That I have explained yesterday. You have to watch the previous video before watching this video, otherwise you won't understand anything. Now, taking that discussion on, yesterday we have talked something about, we haven't talked in the way we had to talk about the receptors. We did not talk in the way. No, we did not use the language of receptors. We were just understanding from a common example that this dog and a boy. So this is not actually pharmacology. This was just to make you oriented that which systems are working, which systems are sympathetic, which are parasympathetic. We haven't talked into the language of receptors. We haven't talked in the language of receptors. Now I will be talking, since we have got the knowledge of the receptors. I hope so. NM, NN, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. Now we will take that language inside this. We will make it a part of this discussion, so that we can get crystal clear idea which drug I have to give, which drug will be acting on M1, which drug will be acting on M3. That's what is the main motto of this pharmacology. Okay. So before falling in love with pharmacology, you have to remember the basic concepts. Okay. From basics, we take that staircase phenomenon. And we are moving up and up. Are we able to understand, guys? So now, if I talk about the cholinergic system, we said it is mostly, by the way, the most dominant, if you say, sir, the dominant system, if you say, what is actually, mostly it has been seen the parasympathetic remains dominant. Parasympathetic has that, unless and until there is any sort of an emergency adrenergic system activity. So if I talk about the cholinergic system, in the cholinergic system, we have talked about muscarinic effects. Now starting again from the heart. If I start from the heart, what is the effect of parasympathetic system on the heart? What is the effect of the parasympathetic system on the heart? Let me take them individually. Okay, let me take them individually, guys. So if I talk about I had taken that green color, I think, isn't it? I had taken the green color. So if I talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, in the parasympathetic nervous system, if I take the heart, in the heart, the effect of the parasympathetic system is to decrease the heart rate. It has to decrease the heart rate. Before again going to this discussion, I want to give you some tools in your hand. Okay, should we give you 3 tools in your hand so that you can definitely rock it? Okay, I give you 3 tools to remember something. Okay, then we use those tools to nail every concept. Okay, to nail every concept. See guys, the basic function of these receptors is they will do either they will do a stimulatory activity or they will do an inhibitory activity. That is the concept we know. Then they should be linked inside the cell with some intracellular messengers. So for example, if this is a cell and I have a receptor on the top, it should be linked inside with any intracellular messenger. So that messenger, if I click here, if I click with the mouse here, that click should reach the inside of the cell so that the cell knows that I have to do this function. Cell knows I have to do this function. Whatever be the nature of the receptor, the function will happen accordingly. The function will happen accordingly. If I take, for example, the nature of the receptors, there is a beautiful mnemonic to remember. You don't need to go into that extensive detail of breaking the fragments and then producing. You have to remember the nature of the receptors. You have learned it in endocrine physiology. I will be repeating that in the endocrine physiology. But from pharmacology point of view, you have to remember, if I take cholinergic receptors, that is M1, M2, M3, you have to write kick. What do you have to write, guys? Kick. You have to write kick. Sir, what is kick? This is GQ mediated. This, guys, this is GQ mediated. What is this? GQ mediated means the protein is inside the linked intracellular protein is GQ. I means inhibitory. How able to understand? I means inhibitory. Q means again something, you know, I can say calcium. Okay, I can say something calcium related. But here you have to remember GQ is, you know, secondary messenger. Q secondary. I will be telling you why this is happening later on. But here just remember. Now tell me one thing. If I take the heart tissue, now we have to use these three systems. I'm again telling you how to go, how to approach. Otherwise you'll get confused. Muscarinic is parasympathetic. This is first principle we know. Now this muscarinic I have to apply to every tissue. Which tissue is having which receptors. That you also already know from the previous video. If you haven't watched, go to that video. Now I will tell you this example. Now this is the heart tissue. This is the heart tissue. Okay. This is the interatrial septum. This is the atrioventricular septum, and this is the interventricular septum. Now you tell me, please. You have to decrease the heart rate in parasympathetic activity or increase the heart rate? You have to decrease the heart rate. Do you want an inhibitory action on the heart or stimulatory action on the heart? Now, which receptor is present on your AV and SA node? Which receptor is present on your SA and AV? You have vagus, isn't it? You have right vagus and left vagus, guys. You have right vagus and left vagus, guys, to stop, isn't it? So you should give which receptor? M2. So M2 receptors. So that means true or false. M2 receptors, when stimulated, listen to my words, when I stimulate M2 receptors, I decrease the heart rate. I cause bradycardia. Very nice. This is clear. Okay. So can I say M2 action is negatively chronotropic? It has a negative chronotropic action. It has a negative chronotropic action. It has a negative chronotropic action. And it has also decreased the conduction also. See guys, it has decreased the conduction. SA node to AV node, you are decreasing the conduction also. You are not letting that conduction to happen. So that means it will be negatively dromotropic also. So M2 receptors have negative chromotropic effects and negative dromotropic effects. Negative dromotropic effects, negative dromotropic effects, negative chronotropic effects. Okay. Basically, what is the reason that this is happening? You may have read about the, in the cardiac physiology. In the cardiac physiology, we have slopes. So how is it causing this? We will be learning it again in the antiarrhythmics. But here I want to add that point is, if, for example, this is I'm drawing the depolarization curves. Okay. Now tell me one thing. This is the phase 4. This is the phase 4. if I increase the slope, if I increase the slope of this, what will happen to the depolarization? What will happen to the diastolic depolarization? Will it increase or decrease? If you increase the slope, that means you will fastly achieve the depolarization. You have a rapid depolarization. You will achieve fast depolarization. Means you don't have to say increase, you have to say I will achieve fast depolarization. I will achieve the depolarization fast. And if I am decreasing the slope, it will take time for me. It will take time for me to reach to that depolarization state. So now tell me one thing. Do you want the depolarization state to take time, or it should happen rapidly in case of M2 stimulation? In case of M2 stimulation, do you want this slope to decrease or increase? You will definitely want this slope to decrease so that it takes you time to reach that amount of that point of depolarization, to reach that point of depolarization. So bradycardia happens because of the decrease in the slope of phase 4 of action potential, because there is a delay in the natural diastolic depolarization. There is a decrease in natural or spontaneous, you should use the word, not natural actually, spontaneous depolarization. Spontaneous depolarization. Spontaneous depolarization. Now tell me one thing. You are using that AV node. You told sir that AV node I am decreasing the conduction. Okay. That means I am increasing the AV nodal delay. That means I am increasing the AV nodal delay, because when I increase the AV nodal, why this happens? Where is the pen? Yeah. So when I increase the AV nodal delay, that means it takes time for the impulse to reach the lower system, conduction system of the lower conduction system of the heart. So that means I am doing two things at the same time. In short, I am decreasing the chronotropic. I am actually, negatively causing it more to become negatively chronotropic, and I am causing it more to become negatively tomotropic, isn't it? Now tell me one thing. Let us reverse this concept. Let us have a reversal, not actually vasomotor reversal of Dale, reversal of this concept. Now tell me one thing. You said, sir, cholinergic receptors activated will lead to the bradycardia, decrease heart rate, negatively chronotropic, negatively chronotropic. Cholinergic drugs to this patient, it will increase the heart rate, that is cause tachycardia, and all that positive chromotropic and positive dromotropic actions will resume in the heart, Is it clear, friends? Is it clear? Okay. Heart is done. Going to its component, that is blood vessel. That is blood vessel, guys. Do we have any cholinergic blood supply? Do we have any cholinergic system supplying the blood vessels? Do we have any cholinergic system supplying the blood vessels, guys? There is actually receptor system. You can say there is cholinergic receptor system. Cholinergic receptors are present on the endothelial cell line. We know the the cells lining the blood vessels are the endothelial cells, where what is basically the squamous epithelium. They have the receptors M3. They have M3 receptors. Now, M3 receptors, this M3, remember, think like this M3 has inside NO. Means from outside, see, it is hidden. It is hidden inside, okay? It is hidden inside the cell. Now think like this. It is hidden. I'm taking this endothelial cell. I have taken this endothelial cell out, okay? I have taken this endothelial cell out. What I am doing is, this M3 is outside. Once I stimulate this M3 by giving its neurotransmitter, what will happen? What will happen? This M3 will mediate, this will cause, this is the NO, this will stimulate this NO. This will stimulate this NO. Now this NO will cause activation of CGMP system, isn't it, guys? CGMP system will get activated, and once the CGMP system gets activated, we know from the basic histology principles. I have taught you the cardiovascular histology. Go to those videos. Histology of blood vessels. There also I have discussed that how relaxation will happen. This will finally lead to the relaxation or the vasodilatation. So nitrous oxide, this nitric oxide is a vasodilator. is caused by the stimulation of M3, and this NO-mediated vasodilation will happen. Another concept is that we only remember this concept, but there is another concept which I have taught you, I think your senior batch also, in the last year. I told you at that time, don't remember that it's only NO. Don't remember it's only NO. It's basically that once you start ACH, once you bring that ACH, at that point, that ACH will also inhibit the noradrenaline release. That ACH, let me make like this. Now ACH came here, but anyway, ACH came here. What will ACH do? One, you said, sir, NO. Second concept is it will have a direct inhibitory effect on the noradrenaline. Noradrenaline, because I told you yesterday that we have alpha 1 only which is innervated. We have alpha 1 innervation to blood vessels only. There is no innervation to other receptors. We have alpha 1 innervation to these blood vessels. And even if they were about to undergo vasoconstriction, even if they are undergoing a vasomotor action, this ACH will do two things. It will inhibit that noradrenaline, because we know nerve is secreting the noradrenaline, that too an adrenergic fiber. And second is it is causing the stimulation of that cyclic GMP system through the nitric oxide, and finally leads to what? Vasodilatation. So that means we have to remember that ACH, if we are stimulating this M3 receptor pathway, we are causing the vasodilatation. We are causing the vasodilatation of the blood vessels. What we do, usually I have seen students, they cram this thing that, yeah, we have to remember three concepts. But once we ask them, is it only NO? Like yesterday, the boy said NO. I could not tell at that time because it was not a nice time to speak about this. But here, I kept that topic for here. Okay. Because I have taught them also already that it is because not only because of the nitric oxide, but it's also because of the inhibition of the noradrenergic neurotransmitter at that point, which is inhibiting this vasoconstrictor action. But tell me one thing, if I have this endothelium, let me give a histological correlation. Okay, let me give it a histological correlation. Now this is lined by endothelium. This is lined by endothelium. Now tell me, I got an endothelial injury. I got an endothelial injury and now this endothelium is exposed. Now you tell me, I am giving acetylcholine. First year people, I am giving acetylcholine. What will happen to this site? Just think, it's not testing someone. It's just think what can happen. Because more you think, more you understand, more you can answer. Once I am telling you there is endothelial injury, what will happen now? Should try. Wrong, right? It's okay. Mistakes can be made in the classroom, not in the hospital. Remember, guys, there will be vasoconstriction. That's a beautiful concept. Why, sir, vasoconstriction will happen? Because, sir, you have started stimulating the smooth muscle cells now. You have exposed them. You have started smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are M3 receptors, guys. And those are not, it's only this endothelium which is NO linked. Those are not, they will do their action, M3. They will do vasoconstriction, guys. They will do vasoconstriction. That's a beautiful concept. I don't know why I love medicine. It's a beautiful concept. So that means acetylcholine, when you are giving to it, when you are giving this acetylcholine to a nice finished, finishing is there, very nice finishing of the blood vessels is there. There is endothelium lining is in contact. There is no discontinuity. There is no atherosclerotic plaque. There is no sort of thrombosis. It will definitely cause vasodilatation. But once that endothelium is damaged, once that endothelium has been scrapped, once that subendothelial tissue has been nicked, what will happen? You will have a vasoconstriction. You will have a vasoconstriction. It's beautifully explained by Harrison, actually. Okay, Harrison's textbook of medicine. This was about blood vessels. Let me go to the which part? we had yesterday said first we should eat, then we should go, and then we do other things, isn't it? That was the language we used last time. See, if I take the bronchus, see bronchus, we said yesterday, normally what is happening in the parasympathetic activity, we have a bronchoconstriction, and there is nothing to add, that it's the M3 receptors which you will be stimulating and they will cause bronchoconstriction. What is bronchoconstriction actually? Yeah, which question? But sir, ACH gives dilatation. Yeah, which place? That's actually in the competent vessel. The endothelium lining should be intact. You have to remember this concept. Endothelium lining is intact, you will have a vasodilatory effect. If you have endothelial injury, you will be exposing the subendothelial region and you will be having a constrictor action there. Fine. Is it clear? The person who asked the question, Fabina, is it clear? Fabina from Kerala. Is it fine? Okay. Okay. Then it's good. So there will be, now tell me one thing, what is bronchoconstriction? Bronchoconstriction means, your bronchus is normally what? Your bronchus has smooth muscle cells around it, isn't it? You have smooth muscle cells around the bronchus, guys, isn't it? Do we know this? Now, if you contract these muscles, what will happen? You will try to narrow it from all sides. You will try to narrow this lumen from all sides. Now this lumen will become this much. Do you think that more air will come now or less air? Now will more air come through this or less air? Less air can be, okay, because you don't need right now. You are sitting, you are learning calmly, studying coolly, very enjoying way. You are studying. There is no hurry. There is no worry. There is no tension. So you are in a normal state. There is no need. Once you think, yeah, what happened? Something, you are running. You had some emergency. You are in the OT. You are in you are in the OPD. You are in the emergency department. Then yeah, definitely you will be having a bronchodilation so that more air is given to you, so that it can meet the essential requirements of the cellular components of your body. This bronchus is called, this M3 receptor is causing this bronchoconstriction. You stimulate M3 receptors, you will have a bronchoconstriction. So bronchus, M3 mediated bronchoconstriction. Going to the eye. Okay. Next organ. What is the effect of the cholinergic system on the eye? We have circular muscles of the eye. Those are called sphincter pupillae. Sphincter pupillae are the circular muscles of the eye. And once you stimulate these circular muscles, it will cause M3, because there is M3 present here. So M3 mediated not vasoconstriction, actually meiosis. Okay, it's vasoconstrictory meiosis. Okay, vasoconstrictory meiosis. Is it fine? Not vasoconstrictor, sorry, again I'm saying I'm with something else. It's meiosis. Okay, meiosis, the constriction. Same way the pupil size is getting less, you are having that constricted pupil. I wanted to say constrictor, I had to say constricted pupil. Now tell me one thing, this is your lens and you have ciliaris around it. Okay, ciliary muscles. Now this ciliary muscles is actually changing its size. Now we have you have that ligaments also here. Okay, there are so many things. Just remember one thing here. I will be teaching you in detail in the glaucoma. Okay, so in short, what to remember is, in the eye you have meiosis by M3 sphincter pupilla. And if you give now, or let me take this concept in glaucoma only. Let me take this concept in glaucoma only. Okay. Let me take this concept in glaucoma. Just remember here, this sphincter pupilla, if you stimulate, you will have meiosis. That means anti-M3. That means anti-M3 should give you mydriasis. Anti-M3 should give you mydriasis. It's easy. I think I should go now with the flow. You are able to understand things now, isn't it? So I should not spend more time on this. So let me go to glands. Let me go to glands. We said glands are stimulated by the parasympathetic. Glands are stimulated by the parasympathetic. That means you will have increase in the secretion. That means you will have increase in the secretion. That means you will have what secretions? You will have increased salivation. Okay, you will have increased lacrimation. You will have increased in the sweating also, because muscarinic, isn't it? Acetylcholine, sweating also. Now, if I give someone anticholinergic, what will happen? I will have decreased salivation. That's what I call dry mouth. If I give someone anticholinergic M3, I will have decreased lacrimation, that is dry eye. If I give someone this, then I will have anhidrosis. There is no sweating. There is no sweating. What a beautiful concept this pharmacology is. So that means I will have dry eyes, dry mouth, and decrease. What will cause this dry mouth? It will cause dysphagia, isn't it? It will not allow you to swallow very nicely. So you will have difficulty in swallowing, because it's only from the GI physiology. You are only able to bring that bolus down into the esophagus if you have that moist nature of the bolus, which has been moistened by your saliva, isn't it? So if you have dry mouth, you will be having difficulty in eating also. Okay. Is it clear, friends? Or we are sleeping, we are enjoying breezes outside? Are we enjoying breezes, guys? This pharmacology is so interesting. Once you understand it, then it becomes a taste. Now let us talk about the next organ. Let us take some next organ in the cholinergic system, that is bladder, urinary bladder. The urinary bladder, normally you know that if you are in a normal situation, you can contract the bladder. In the parasympathetic activity, you are using the bladder. Whenever you want to go for a diuresis, we stimulate the muscles of the bladder, okay, and we pass the urine. That is the process of micturition. That's the process of micturition. Now, urinary bladder, if I talk about this bladder is having muscles. The muscles of the bladder are known as detrusor, isn't it? Detrusor muscles of the bladder. Now this detrusor, somebody was saying, sir, glands. Okay, I have kept it here. Okay, you can note it. Okay, so detrusor muscles, what they will do. Now tell me one thing. You want to pass the urine. Okay, this is your urethra. Tell me one thing. Here is the prostate. I take the male one. Okay, I take the prostatic urethra first. This is the prostate around it. Prostate. This is the prostatic urethra. This is the prostatic urethra. Now tell me one thing, guys. You want to pass the urine. Should you contract this and relax this or not? Should you contract this region? Should we contract this region, guys? Yes, we should contract this region. Why, sir? Because I want to pass the urine. Once I do this transitional epithelium, it will do in that way. So it will modify itself, and then you will have a more passage of the urine. So should I relax this region or not? Should I relax this trigon sphincter? Should I relax this sphincter or not? Internal urethral sphincter, I can say. Should I relax this sphincter or not? So this detrusor sphincter should be relaxed. Detrusor sphincter should be relaxed so that we can have micturition. So which receptor here? M3. So stimulate the M3 receptor. You will have micturition. That means anticholinergics should do urinary retention. If I give anticholinergics, they should do retention. Anticholinergic does retention because you are blocking the M3 and you will not be having this detrusor effect, positive detrusor effect. Is it clear? Now at the same time we take the GIT system. We take the GIT. Now GIT, now HCl secretion is happening by M1 and M3. I had taught you yesterday. Okay. That means if I increase the M1 and M3 activity, it means I will be having what? If I increase this activity, I will be having more acid production. So do you think this person, if he has more of the parasympathetic activity, he will have peptic ulcer disease? Will he get predisposed to peptic ulcer disease? Because you are stimulating the parasympathetic pathway, you are stimulating the muscarinic action. Once you have more muscarinic action means more acid means a predisposition to peptic ulcer disease, isn't it? Isn't it a predisposition to peptic ulcer on more stimulation? I'm not saying a general stimulation, I'm saying more stimulation. So because normally these receptors are increasing the secretion. Now, what is the function of this, M1, M3 receptors? They are increasing your peristalsis also of your gut. They are increasing your peristalsis. And if you want to increase the peristalsis of the gut, just a second. Okay. If you are increasing the peristalsis of the gut, should you, if there is a sphincter, should you constrict it or should you relax it? Because you have to move the things. You have to move the things to this region. Should you constrict it? Should you constrict this sphincter? You should relax. No, not relax actually. You should increase the lumen. That is the word you have to use. You have to increase the lumen so that the peristalsis of GIT becomes, it is propulsive, actually a propulsive moment. It's a propulsive moment. That means anticholinergic drugs. That means if peristalsis of GIT is happening by cholinergic activity, don't you think if someone is having these spasms, because it's a spasm, isn't it? It's a spasm. So once you have more spasm, what will happen? You are actually happening that peristaltic activity is more, isn't it? So can I use anticholinergics? Can I use anticholinergics to break these spasms? Can I use anticholinergics as spasmolytics? Can I use anticholinergics as spasmolytics? Guys, don't know why I love medicine. It's a beautiful subject, a logical subject. So I will have spasmolytics. So can I use anticholinergics for intestinal colic? Intestinal colic. Can I use it for intestinal colic? Yes, I will use it for intestinal colic. Is it clear? Is there any doubt? In the end, I will give you a review. Don't worry. Okay. Now going to the sexual organs. Okay. If I talk about, let me take male sex organ. Male sex organ. You know, you have to remember this point. This is the important point. The erection of male genital organ, penis, penile erection, is because of cholinergic system. Male erection is because of cholinergic system. Why? Because cholinergic system leads to vasodilatation. And erection, what is erection? Filling of the blood in those spongy layers of the penis. So that means on vasodilatation, this cholinergic system is causing the erection. No, once you are stimulating the cholinergic system, you will have vasodilatation. You have vasodilatation, that means more blood in the penis. That means erection of the male genital organ. So remember, parasympathetic organ is responsible for erection. That's an important point. I will be telling the opposite in the sympathetic. In sympathetic, it is the ejaculation. Ejaculation is because of sympathetic nervous system. Erection is because of parasympathetic nervous system. You have to remember, ejaculation, I will be teaching you this in the sympathetic. Ejaculation is because of the sympathetic nervous system, adrenergic system. Ejaculation, no, discharging the sperms and semen. Erection, parasympathetic. Ejaculation, sympathetic. Erection, parasympathetic. Remember guys, parasympathetic. Parasympathetic, parasympathetic, guys. You always get confused in the exam. Okay, is it clear? So can I give you a 1 minute smart review of this everything what we learned? See, we said in the heart, if you are causing the M2 stimulation, what will happen? There will be inhibitory effect of this parasympathetic nervous system by the right and left vagus on the SC and AV node, leading to the decreased chronotropic action, leading to decreased dromotropic action. And that can in the end also affect the inotropic action. It's not strictly. That can in the end also affect the, it will affect the inotropic action, because first when you have depolarization, then only you will be having that contractility. But mostly we are taking the contractility in terms of the stretch and all that business. Now, what is the reason? That it is actually causing the decrease. It is decreasing the slope of phase 4. That is decreasing, or I can say that is leading to a delay in the diastolic depolarization. Okay, a spontaneous diastolic depolarization will get decreased, and you will have also some conduction AV delay. There is AV delay also happening because of the parasympathetic stimulation, that is M2 activity. Then I said in the eye, I said that if you stimulate M3 receptors, you have a circular muscles around your eye, that is the sphincter pupillae. Once you stimulate the sphincter pupillae, you will be having meiosis, isn't it? Meiosis. You don't want more light to pass, that study example, and you want less light to pass. Okay. Now that conceptually we made something. Then we say if we give anticholinergics, what will happen? There will be mydriasis and also blurred vision. Okay. It's only, see, once you are, I will be teaching you in the meiotics, don't worry. See, remember, once you are increasing the, it's your clear vision is only because of accommodation, isn't it? You have a clear vision because you have accommodation, and this accommodation is happening because of the ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles are causing accommodation. Okay, but if you have anticholinergic effects, what you will cause? Anticholinergic means mydriasis. Mydriasis means you're dilating the pupil, means you will not be able to see the clear vision. You will have a blurred vision. You will have a blurred vision. That is called blurred vision, or loss of accommodation is called blurred vision. Okay. Now, then we said glands. Glands, we said if we stimulate these glands, you will have increased salivation, you will have increased lacrimation, you will have increased sweating. Then we said, if we give any anticholinergic, we will have dry mouth, we will have dry eyes, we will have decreased difficulty in the swallowing, or we will have dysphagia. Then we said if we stimulate the gastrointestinal tract, the M1 and M3 receptors, what will happen? I will have more amount of HCl secretion. More amount of HCl secretion predisposes this person or is at a risk of peptic ulcer disease. Then we also said if you want to increase the peristalsis of the GIT, what you will do, you will give a cholinomimetic. You will give a cholinomimetic to increase the parasympathetic activity of the GIT and will lead to intestinal peristalsis, not paralysis, isn't it? Peristalsis, that is the propulsive movement of this intestine due to the spike potentials and the migratory motor complexes. I love that Guyton word, what he has written in that Guyton book physiology. Then it's written, if someone is suffering from the intestinal colic, if someone is suffering from that intestinal colic, that is, he's having colics, he's having spasmodic, pains in his GIT, you can give a spasmolytic. You can use anticholinergics as spasmolytic to decrease those colicky pains. Then we said, bladder, if you stimulate the M3 receptors because you want a detrusor activity, so you have to urinate. What will happen? You have to relax the sphincter of this trigon, and you have to increase the contraction of the detrusor muscles so that the things can pass down. Then we said it causes bronchoconstriction by M3 receptors, and you will have bronchodilation by anticholinergics. Then we said it causes erection because of the vasodilatory action on the stimulation of M3 receptors. I hope you remember vasodilatation will happen through the M3 receptors. That is the same concept you have to build it here. Is it clear to all my students? Have we understood the basic funda of this? Is anyone having any question? Because recordings will be available in the app now. You won't maybe upload it or not upload it, but it will be in the app form now. Okay. And you have to log in. You have to log in your app with your university card. It's free of cost. You don't have to pay anything. You have to go to that. You have to scan your medical card, and it will also maybe scan your iris. because it's you who is using it. Just have to put in those details. Okay, you have to put in those details. Then you can successfully log in. Your phone number will be linked to that. Log in and enjoy this, all the medical science videos, whatever you want to learn. It will be having all those recorded lectures. Okay, that is under development. Till that time we are using, we may be providing you someday some videos or someday some not videos. Okay, you have to but upload your university card. Okay, you have to, it should be authentic university card. It should be having stamp of your dean. Then only will you be able to use that app. Okay. Oh, okay. Now see, this was all about what we were talking about, the muscarinic actions. Do you think it's muscarinic action? You were all talking about muscarinic action. Now, nicotinic actions, I am talking about more about that neuronal junction and neuromuscular junction. And neuronal junction means when you have two neurons talking to each other. It's neuronal receptors. Then the receptor becomes NN. This is how we remember. Be it sympathetic pathway, be it parasympathetic pathway. Both will have initial preganglionic parasympathetic fibers that acetylcholine. Since here we are talking about the parasympathetic nervous system, that means in this case there will be both sided preganglionic as well as postganglionic parasympathetic fibers will have acetylcholine. If I talk about preganglionic in postganglionic junction, that is the NN, and postganglionic and target organ will be, can we get that sense? Can we get that sense, the yesterday sense? Yes, this diagram. Can you get that sense? Yes, sir. See here I have NN junction. What here I will be having? NM if it is a muscle, and target organ junction. But what are the two receptors we remember? We remember NN, NM. NN is neuronal, NM is neuromuscular, NMJ. We have understood this clearly. Now going to the pharmacology of this, going to the pharmacology of parasympathomimetic. Let us go to the pharmacology. Parasympathomimetic. Can we understand this word, parasympathomimetic drugs? Go to the previous video to understand. Now parasympathomimetics, why to write drugs? Parasympathomimetics, if I take these, they are classified into two. Directly acting indirectly acting. Directly acting is acetylcholine. Let me write like this. How I remember, let me give you the my own mnemonic. I'm giving you my own mnemonics, how I remember. If you tell me, sir, just utter it in 5 seconds, I will utter acetylcholine, pilocarpine, methanicol, carbachol. This is the directly acting. But how to remember, how I remember is, Prime Minister does not know ABC. Prime Minister does not know ABC. Prime Minister, this is my own mnemonic, okay? I'm sharing you my own mnemonics. Prime Minister does not know ABC. Okay, so P is pilocarpine. P is pilocarpine. M is methacholine. M is methacholine. A is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. B is methanicol. C is carbachol. Pilocarpine, methacholine, acetylcholine, methanicol, and carbachol. These are all directly acting. Is it clear? They will directly act at the receptor site and will start the parasympathomimetic action. That will then depend which place it is. It is an eye, then it will cause the meiosis. Whether it's a blood vessel, it will cause vasodilatation. Whether it's a heart, it will cause negative thrombotrophic effect and negative gonotropic effects. If it's glands, it will decrease the secretions. No, sir, increase the secretions, because you have to increase salivation, increase, lacrimation, increased. Yeah, what else? Increased. Yes. Parasympathomimic increases secretions, and there will be no difficulty in the swallow. Okay, and bronchoconstriction will happen if you are giving a parasympathomimic drug. You will have erection also. Will have erection. That now it will depend on the selectivity. Now it will depend on the selectivity. What is the nature of that drug? Which action it has more? That is more about pharmacology. It's not that everything will happen. Everything will happen. Something has no more affection towards some receptors. We will be learning that. That is what pharmacology you have to learn. Okay, everything is not based on logic. You have to remember things. Okay, indirectly acting we have means indirectly acting. That means I should be making more availability of acetylcholine. Means I should increase the I should do such a thing, such a method, so that I increase the acetylcholine at the junction, pre-synaptic and post-synaptic junction. I increase the level of acetylcholine. That's a beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. People have answered it. Physostigmine, neostigmine, they have beautifully answered it. But here I want to give it under the classification. Okay, they are the same exactly. There is no change. Okay, you have to classify them. Okay, so that we can remember their properties in a nice way. So indirectly acting means I am inhibiting the acetylcholinesterase. That means I am inhibiting the acetylcholinesterase. Once I inhibit the acetylcholinesterase, I will be increasing the availability of acetylcholine at that junction, NN junction or NM junction. That's a different question. So indirectly acting, I have a reversible and irreversible. So we call them reversible anticholinesterases and irreversible anticholinesterases. Okay, reversible anticholinesterases, irreversible anticholinesterases. Now let me take these two boxes so that we can learn them together. Okay, so let me take reversible now we remember anticholinesterases and irreversible anticholinesterases. Now no, I have my own mnemonics which I keep sharing with all the students so that I can help the people. Okay, that's what I love. So that's why I want your every task to become easy. Okay, so right in the way I'm telling you. Okay, now I have my own mnemonics. From these reversible, there is another classification which may have come across in the books also. They are dividing it into lipid soluble and water soluble. What is lipid soluble? Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla is lipid soluble. You give him money, he will become lipid soluble. Is it clear? Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla is lipid soluble. You give him this, he will become what? Guys, is it clear? I will be telling you what is Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. I don't know what is this name. I'm just making it myself. Okay. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. It's just, making in the brain. I don't know whether it's the name of someone or not. Just making it. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla is lipid soluble. Is it clear? So lipid soluble is, what is P? P is, this is my own mnemonic, guys. This is not from anything. Okay, you won't get it on internet. If someone is having that mnemonic, he has learned from me. Okay, it's my own mnemonics, my own hard work. I'm giving you. Okay, physostigmine. D for donepezil. D for donepezil. R for rivastigmine. R for rivastigmine. R for rivastigmine. T for tacrine. T for tacrine. G for galantamine. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla is fatty guy. He is lipid fatty guy. Lipid fluffy guy. Are we able to understand? Is lipid fluffy? So how you remember physostigmine, donepezil, rivastigmine, tacrine, galantamine? How you remember physostigmine, donepezil, rivastigmine, tacrine, galantamine? Again, physostigmine, donepezil, rivastigmine, tacrine, galantamine. These are all lipid soluble, reversible, indirectly acting cholinergic drugs. But what they are doing, they are inhibiting the anticholinergic, thereby increasing the levels of acetylcholine at that junction and giving us that parasympathetic effect. Talking about the water soluble, water means water. And in the school, these are all my mnemonics. My mnemonics in the school, I was in the school and I used to use the ink pen. And what happened one day is I used ink pen. I loved ink pen. I still love ink pen. And with that ink bottle in the hand, I filled my pen with the ink and I started writing. I know an Urdu passage. Okay, I was writing an Urdu passage in my school days. So I wrote it very beautifully in a nice calligraphic way, in Arabic calligraphic way. And what happened? And what happened? There was a, what was there? Suddenly, the guy from my side, he was drinking some water and he spoiled my work. Then I came to know at that moment that ink pens are water soluble. If it would had been lipid soluble, it could not had spoiled my work. Then I came to know that I am water soluble. This ink is water soluble. Is it clear, friends? Yeah? Are we clear? So what word you have to remember? Pen. Pen. What? Pen. Okay. Pen is water soluble because you know my story. Okay. Pen. There's something happened. The screen is not visible. I don't know what happened suddenly. I'm sorry for this. Some technical problem. Just a second. Okay. Can we see the screen, guys? Yeah. So you remember pen. What, guys? Pen. What is pen? Pyridostigmine, adrophonium, neostigmine. Pyridostigmine, adrophonium, neostigmine. Pyridostigmine, adrophonium, neostigmine. Is it clear, friends? Do we have any doubt? Pyridostigmine, adrophonium, and neostigmine. These are water soluble. Okay, guys. Is it clear? Now, irreversible anticholinesterase. Irreversible. Now I take this box more downwards. Irreversible anticholinesterase. We have organophosphates. And we have carbamates. Organophosphate means Colonel Deputy Commissioner Murtha Patej's den. Colonel DC Murtha Patej's den. This is my own mnemonic, okay? Murtha Patej's den. Because in that den, some people tried to produce what? Organophosphate, but he went to that spot and he arrested them. He arrested them at that spot. Then it was named as Colonel DC Murtha Patej's den. Colonel DC Murtha Patej's den. Colonel DC, it's my own mnemonics, guys. You enjoy MBBS. It's time for you here, okay? Colonel DC Murtha Patej's den, making pharmacology easy so that you can treat the patients. That's it. Making the world great again. Colonel DC Murtha Patej's den. Colonel DC Murtha Pate. What happened? The story is that Colonel DC Murtha Pate, Colonel DC Murtha Pate, he went to a place. He was at that time, he was first a colonel. I'm just making my own story, okay? Just talking about someone, a local district collector. Then he went to that place and he did an investigation, and it was found that there was a den which was some people were producing organophosphate. They were storing those organophosphates at that point. So what happened? He went there, took the action, took the cognizance of that place, and then he nicely, treated those people, isn't it? He took a legal action because they were illegally producing those. So organophosphates. Colonel is guys, chloropyrifos. D is for DFP. It's another chemical. I will tell you what you have to remember from this. C is for dash. C is for nothing. Okay, C is for nothing. Either you can remember DC only, or you can remember this. Okay, I think there is nothing with the DC. Okay, so either you can remove the colonel. Okay, it's your choice. You can remove the colonel and use the DC. Let us keep it in the DC way. Okay, DC Murtha Pate. Okay, let us keep it in the DC way. This is chlorpyrifos. Murtha is malathion. Okay, malathion. P is for parathion. D is for diazinon. Diazinon is TiK20. E is for ecothiophate. And T is for N is for nerve gases. Nerve gases, and we have 3 nerve gases which you have to remember. Tarbun, sarin, soman. What? Tarbun, sarin, soman. Let me write like this. Tarbun, sarin, soman. These are all what? Organophosphates. What are these? Organophosphates means they will irreversibly bind to anticholinesterase and will not leave them. Okay, like an English movie. Okay, so they will irreversibly attach to them and not leave them, isn't it? Anticholinesterases. Is it clear, friends? Carbamates, you have to remember what? Cap. C for carbamate, C for cap. What is cap? Carbaryl. A for haldi carb. P for propoxor. Do we have any doubt, guys? Do we have any doubt? Can I read it for you so that you get a revision? Yeah, and we end this discussion here. Okay, so parasympathomimetics, I am dividing these parasympathomimetics into 2, or I can say, mostly you can use also some books will be using cholinergics, so it is okay. Cholinergics, you have directly acting. Let me take the marker with me. You have directly acting. Okay, is yellow color visible, guys? You have directly acting. Directly acting has PM does not know ABC. So P is pilocarpine, A is acetylcholine, B is bethanycol, M is methacholine, C is carbachol. And then we had indirectly acting cholinergics, that is they will inhibit the acetylcholinesterases. Once you inhibit the acetylcholinesterases, you will be having more amount of acetylcholine at that NN or NM junction. Now those are 2 types. Reversible anticholinesterases, irreversible anticholinesterases. Reversible anticholinesterases, irreversible anticholinesterases. Now, reversible means I have to remember 2. Lipid soluble, water soluble. Who was lipidy fatty guy? Please close your copies. Who was lipid fatty guy? It was Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. It is physostigmine, donepezil, rivastigmine, tacrine, and galantamine. But water soluble, it spoiled, that boy spoiled that pen, and then I remember the pen is pyridostigmine, hydrophonium, neostigmine. Irreversible anticholinesterases, we have 2 organophosphates, carbamates. Organophosphate is DC, or I remember Professor Doctor, not that, Colonel DC Murtha Pattezjan. I don't know who this is. Just making something story out of it. So DFP, chlorpyrifos, malathion, parathion, diazinon, ecothiophrate, now gases tarbon, styrene, soman. Carbamate says carbaryl, aldecarbon, propoxor. Are we having any doubt in this? Can we have another revision? Eyes closed revision. Just close your copies, guys. Close your copies, guys. When you close it, just let me know. Just close it. We want you to have that photographic memory. Just close your copies. Okay, done. Now look at me. Can you tell me some names of indirectly acting reversible water soluble ones? Reversible water soluble ones, guys. Closing your eyes, focusing on the mnemonic and then answering me. Beautiful answer. Pyridostigmine, adrophonium. First you should write the mnemonic so that your brain gets the guide. Adrophonium, pyridostigmine, neostigmine. Water soluble, guys. Water soluble. That's a beautiful answer. That's no, water soluble. It's PAN only. Water soluble is PAN only. Water soluble is PAN. Now I take lipids. So lipid soluble will be what? Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. Professor Dr. Thakur Galla. It will be physostigmine, donepezil, rivastigmine, tacrine, calendamine. Then you move. So can you tell me names of directly acting cholinergic drugs? Directly acting cholinergic drugs, guys. Directly acting, guys. Just write first the mnemonic. Write the mnemonic in the chat box first. Let me first know the mnemonic. Then your brain will start speaking everything. Yeah, very nice. PMABC. So it's pilocarpine. It's methacholine. It's acetylcholine. It's bethanicol. It is carbachol. Now tell me, guys, one thing. Just wait. Bas. Irreversible anticholinesterases. Irreversible anticholinesterases. We have two chemicals. What? Organophosphates, carbamates. Organophosphates, colonel DC Murtha Pattezjan. Malathion, parathion, DFP, diazinon, ecothiophrate, chlorpyrifos, tarbon, soman. I have spent my whole 2 years of MBBS learning these in the library. I used to learn them with my own passion and dedication. That's how you can remember them. Otherwise, it will be difficult. It is volatile and it will become more volatile. Okay, friends. I hope you have enjoyed this topic. Subscribe to this channel. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel. You will be having all the videos and I will be giving you the app information also soon once we get that app. Thank you very much. God bless you. Enjoy your MBBS. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.